What's going on, guys? This is the Gainz podcast. Look who just came out.
I just levitated from the heavens above. The lifting gods grace me with another podcast.
This is Roman Long, guys. Episode 37. We're only gonna have him talk throughout this whole episode, and I won't say a damn word.
We're covering some gym myths for you today, folks. Some people have certain fears. Some are definitely warranted. Others, we hope to help shed some light on some myths, dispel some myths, so that you feel empowered to go out into the gym and get jacked and or swole, folks. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and we also wanted to do this episode too because we're doing the phases and we're doing a little bit more side work on like the actual phases of getting back into a gym, getting back into like your programs and whatnot. We wanted to take like this week to just kind of do something different because what Roman and I planned out was weeks 1 to 4 when it comes to training. And since every podcast comes out every week, we'll be able to kind of, get that crisp knowledge, that training program into that Google Sheets document. We shared it on YouTube and all the audio platforms for the podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. I will put that link of the Google Sheets in the Instagram as well. I haven't done it yet, Roman. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm letting you down.
Actually, it's still like technically only partially built, so if somebody was doing it, like if you have questions, like find us on Instagram and DM us at RomanLong1031 for me and at Antoine Coletta.
Or at the Gainz podcast Instagram. We both have access.
Either works.
Someone's like, I don't have access to that.
Well, it was end of quarter, end of month, so I'm like trying to get out like anything that I could, and it was just like such a shit show. I'm like, oh my god.
So Roman's brain at this point in life, guys, is fried, and we're barely hitting July.
Yeah. I got my emails down from like 120 this morning to 30.
Wow, that's I don't know if that's something to be proud of.
Dude, I like every day I finish work, I'm like, thank God, like I lift and I do all these like other like healthy good things for my body, because like, man, I'm so surprised I don't have carpal tunnel in my fingers already.
Oh yeah, you guys just need to get one of these mice. It's so ergonomic. Literally, you put your hand like this.
It's just the typing, man. Like, flip back to Wolf's Law podcast episode 26. I have no idea, something around there. I'm gonna have like the most jacked fingers. Like, people are gonna be like, "What the heck did this person do?" Like, they took some serious trauma to their fingers, like every day. Yes, typing.
I'm kind of pissed that. Speaking of which, I have not been able to use my gel thing for my wrist because.
Oh, really?
Remember, I would bring it back from the office and then, like take it back and forth. It's still there, and I don't know if I'll be able to see it ever again.
Dang, it was sniped for sure.
Yeah, it was 100%. There people were like, dude, we're not coming back to the office. What can we scoop? Oh, wrist pad, let's go get it.
Yep.
But yeah, today we're talking about fitness myths that we're starting to see today. That we're still seeing today. I know we probably did something like this in the past, but I thought this would be a fun one to like catch back here. Roman and I kind of just free realm, like, have that free conversation upon like fitness, and then give you guys some more information. So Roman, I'm gonna let you go first into one, and then maybe we'll just talk. I have a couple listed, and if we don't get through them, we don't get through them. If we get through them, we get through them.
All right. I love to always start with squats. So we'll start with squats. Squats are bad for like insert body part. The one I hear probably the most is squats are bad for your knees. And I think there's like a couple things behind that. So one reason why I think that myth is potentially dangerous for gym goers is that people hear about like all these amazing benefits for squats. Like it's, some people are like, it's gonna grow my glutes, and like believe it or not, like your butt muscles are like one of the largest muscles in your body. They're like, I think second to just like the quadricep muscles if you were to take them like as a grouping. So they're freaking massive. Like I think they might even be bigger than like the abdominis rectus muscle. Obviously it depends. I think those like studies are done on like untrained or like for a short period of time, like individuals, and it's like by weight of like the muscle tissue itself. But like, man, you and I, we've both seen like people with big old butts. Like I think both of us are like one of those people. So like people like the point about me talking about butts is why is Roman saying butt so many times?
You like butts, guys. Leave them alone.
Super Troopers episode. You guys say butts 10 times. Apologize, chicken fucker. Anyways, so people like hear all these different benefits to squats, but then it always comes down to like, yeah, but aren't they bad for your knees? No. So I think the reason why people say that is if people use improper form or like they're getting used to the movement, like it's not a movement that they don't do like weighted squats, for example, like they may have never put like a barbell on their back and they like are trying it out. Like the first time they do it, their knees might be a little sore. So there's a couple of corrections that people will take, and I think that they're harmful. So one thing that you'll hear people say is, okay, squats can be bad for your knees, but the way that you correct that is to never allow your knees to go over your toes. So it's like, as like a generalization, that doesn't work for everybody. What if somebody has like really long femurs and they have like really flexible ankles? So they have like the requisite mobility in their ankles so that their knees tend to track over their toes when they get into a deep squat. And they've heard like the greatest benefits are in like a deep squat, which like is true as a general statement. It depends on like the person you're applying it to, but like as a general statement, that's fine. Deeper range of motion is good for a variety of reasons. One that this is like never talked about is strength through range of motion. So if you only ever do like a quarter squat, for example, you're only going to be strong through that range of motion. So you could be able to like quarter squat 315 pounds, but if you ever needed to, let's say like squat anything, somebody puts like a weighted like, a box on your shoulder and you need to squat that to the ground. Like if it weighs like 50, 60 pounds, but you've never like squatted something to the ground before, that's going to feel like really awkward and your body's not going to be accustomed to it. So I think that that's like a situation where people can like get like, oh, like I'm experiencing like some pain in my knees. I think it's more that like the muscles, like the ligaments, tendons, the tissues aren't used to that stressor. So that can cause like somewhat of like an unwanted like stimuli or like response. I squatted yesterday and like, did I have like a little bit of pressure in my knees? Yeah, like absolutely. It was the first time like I did weighted squats in forever. But that's part of like this resensitization program we're running. That's why I squatted so low. That's why I did such a few sets of squats, because the next time it's going to be like even less, and the next time it's going to be even less. And I'm going to be adding more and more weight. So by the time I get to like the weights I was lifting beforehand, I'm not going to have wrecked myself where I'm like crawling out of the gym. I'm like, oh well, yeah, I feel like a little weak. Like I feel like I really like stressed the muscles. Like I feel like I got a good workout. But we'll put that on the back burner. So what people will do if they're going to prevent their knees from going over their toes, they're going to have to create compensations, which you're going to find like downstream effects. So what they might do is they might take more of like a hip flexion perspective. So they might prioritize like greater hip flexion, where they might get a whole lot more benefit by being much more upright in the squat. But by making that compensation so that their knees don't flex over their toes, they will have like a greater forward bend. Now, for some people, that might be like a stronger position for them, so that might work. But for other people, it might not be, especially if they do have longer femurs, then and they have like very mobile ankles. This is like a classic case where in that instance, you want to allow that person to really move along that track that their body is like allows them to move along. Because if you don't, there is some like research that shows I think it's mainly geared towards like looking at like partial range of motion, but like instances of like pain because of that. Now, I'm not saying like if you squat like partial range of motion, like you're going to have like, you know, pain because of that, then like people are just going to avoid them altogether. And like I wouldn't doubt that. But I think the point being is that by creating these like mentalities, like holding these myths that they like harm people, maybe not like as like what would be like a first order effect, but maybe as like downstream effects. So in general, is squatting past your knees okay? Yeah, 100%, it's fine. You, especially if it's like the first time you're doing like a program, or the first time you might be doing like weighted squats, or maybe even like unweighted squats. It could just be like body weight squats. There's a lot of like ways you can do certain things where like it can cause like maybe like more or less like stress to like muscles, tendons, joints. One of those things is like bouncing out of the hole. So if you're doing some sort of like an AMRAP with squats and you're trying to do as many squats as you can, as many reps as possible before you stop, or if it's timed, then in that instance, like you increase your risk to have like higher joint, just like joint discomfort, I would say. That's been my experience as well. So in that instance, like what you can do is you can still do that. That's fine. Just understand like what like that effect might be. But I would say like also time in like tempo squats as well, and like really focus on like range of motion, depth, focus on the movement itself, like the movement quality. Try and like feel like the prime movers. So in this instance, it's always going to be the glutes. It's always going to be the quads. You're going to feel it in your low back. So like if you feel them in those like muscle groups, like that's good. That means that like that those are the areas you should feel it. Like in like a heavy squat, like it's a full body, like it's a full body exercise. You're going to feel it everywhere. But like those would be considered like the quote unquote like prime movers. I remove the hamstrings because people feel like squats more or less in the hamstrings, dependent upon like their like leverages. But for the most part, it's not. I wouldn't consider it a prime mover because the hamstring either works to flex the knee joint, or it works to extend the hip, I believe. Is that correct?
Extends the knee, you said?
Yeah. It contracts by extending the hip. Yeah. Flex the knee, extend the hip, I'm pretty sure. If somebody, like, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that those are like the prime roles of the hamstring muscle group, if you will. So that's hopefully that like long, drawn out, convoluted explanation helps to explain why knees aren't bad for your knees. Squats aren't bad for your knees. Knees aren't bad for your knees.
Yes, this episode we're talking about knees are bad for your knees. No, that's great because like there's been like, you know, a lot of people that are like, oh, why do you squat? Oh man, I used to play sports. My knees are all messed up. Oh man, I'm too old for squats. I don't see it as too much of an actual reason. I see it more as an excuse because like, you know, a lot of people honestly, they're probably, I mean, as long as like, you know, as long as your age is where you're at and you're healthy for that age, like yeah, squats aren't ever gonna like, you know, hinder health, in my opinion. And even if, and you don't need to always go so hard. You don't need to hit singles. You can easily hit like, you know, sets of 8, sets of 10, you know, something like that. I mean, for quarantine, I was hitting like sets of like 20 plus on each set, and
Yeah.
I obviously don't have a barbell, but like I still felt the benefits of squatting because I was feeling all my glutes, my low backs, my quads, and I was getting a good pump. So
Yeah. And like, it's not to say that like there are some people where like they might not be able to like squat again unless we have like some advanced like medical technology. Like one person that comes to mind is Ryan Fisher of like the Shrug Collective. So he's like for people that don't know, he's a pretty cool guy. Like I would definitely like go and check him out. He's got it's like jimryan.com I think is his website, and then he owns Chalk somewhere in like Southern California. So he was like a fairly well-known CrossFit athlete back in like the early 2010s. He was like I think he was a professional bobsled like athlete. He's done like a lot of
oh
weird
wow,
things.
that's
He has
awesome.
his like helicopters license. He's a really weird dude, but he's like pretty
Yeah.
cool too, and he's like very passionate about fitness. I don't agree with like everything he says, but like he's like a very purposeful individual in the health and fitness space. But he had like I think a skiing accident where he like messed up his menisci in both knees, I think. So squatting, so like a bilateral movement, a bilateral squat movement is very painful for him. It seems that whether it be like compression, whether it be like the way like the tendons and or the ligaments glide over the knee joint, whatever it is, in a bilateral squatting movement, it causes him like a lot of local pain in his knees. So what he's found to adapt to that are he does like Bulgarian split squats. He does like a lot of lunging movements, and like he's got a big butt. He's got like a really big, strong butt. He's like a pretty jacked dude. He's like my size.
Hey now.
Hey now. But yeah, no, he's like jacked. He's pretty ripped up. He's got like a good like amount of like muscle on him. He's strong. Like he's strong as hell. Like I think he does at least 405 for reps on like walking lunges. So
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's pretty tense.
As I say, didn't you? I mean, you mentioned in quite some detail when like quarantine was first arised, and you mentioned like lunges can be sufficient when it comes to like that lower body movement, and squatting is good and all, but like if you for some reason you can't or you like lunging, then why can't I don't see a problem with doing a single leg lunge, either Bulgarian style, whatever other style you like, but what I'm saying, like walking lunge, just don't wear knee wraps while you're lunging, guys. You're not freaking you're not a strong man, or you're not. Yeah. I've seen someone at an old gym export. That was like a gym where there's a bunch of those guys. They were literally wrapping their knees for like a 225 walking lunge. I'm like, buddy, you could be doing something else for your time. Like, you're too bored. Like, go home or something.
But that's like a good example. Like that's a really good example of somebody that might have like taken it to the extremes, and they like might only be able to do that movement like without pain by wrapping it. But like that might be an instance where it's like they need to resensitize. Like they need to have a resensitization phase, like maybe even longer than like 4 weeks, because they might have caused like so much just like local damage to the area, and they like never allowed that. Because like when we work out, we like cause local damage. Like that's what we want. We want to have like a cortisol response. We want to have like some sort of like local inflammation. Like that's what like brings all these like goodies to the area that helps to like heal the tissue. Now like muscle damage, I'm like becoming less and less convinced like every day, and like the more I read that like it results in like growth. I think it might actually be like an unnecessary like byproduct, and like pretty much just like stimulation, like local stimulation across the muscle fiber is like the intended like purpose. But like totally different like conversation, whatnot. So like that individual might have benefited from just lightening up the weight, doing like unweighted lunges, so that they can like essentially like reduce like the overall let's say like overall like volume or like just inflammation they're causing to the area. Like maybe even like wait it out, do a different movement pattern for like a mesocycle. But do it like without knee wraps. Like try and do it without knee wraps and see if you can move without pain, you know?
That person that probably does that is probably not going to watch this, Roman, okay?
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, if you're using like a tool to cover up mass pain, then you're just essentially like extending out a process. And it could be worse because you could be like hiding an injury. And like, if it gets worse, if you end up like, let's say like you tear a tendon, like a muscle, whatever it is, like, dude, that's going to take you a whole lot more to rehab than like checking your ego at the door and saying like, okay, have I been overdoing it? Look at it. Like, did you ramp up volume too much? Has your sleep been shit? Has your nutrition been crap? Have you just generally, have you just felt like beat up in the gym? Then like you're probably overdoing it. If like you don't tick any of those boxes and you're like, no, like my workouts have been like in check, like I'm reasonably ramping up volume, my sleep's been like good or okay, like nutrition's been like on point type deal, then maybe it's just a situation where like you need to switch out the movement. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Do it for like a mesocycle or two, like 4 to 8 weeks. And like if you really love that movement, like you're gonna come right back to it, no problem.
I mean, Roman, people should be sleeping. Most of everybody is working at home, dude.
Yeah.
If you're not sleeping, then I don't know what. You must be Roman Long or something.
Too much Netflix.
Netflix and chill? Is that still a thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and like, what's crazy is as Roman was going in the beginning, like before we were talking about this, to some of Roman's points, and what we talked about the last 2 podcasts is another like, thing that we're going to see is, going hard, after quarantine has been done, or I guess quarantine in the process, but, gyms being open. But make sure, like, you guys would take your time within the gym. If you haven't watched the last podcast, go to episode 36, check it out. We start off with a good resensitization plan and phase. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention out there, like, make sure we're still taking our time within the gym. Our bodies aren't meant to be moving as much as it was in the gym before. As much as I work out still 6 days a week with training weights and machines, I'm not gonna go in the gym and try to pick up 315, 405 or anything like that, or even squat 225. Like I'll be probably squatting what Roman squatted the other day. What was it, 135 only?
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, just like Roman was saying, check your ego at the door. You don't want to get injuries when you just waited 3 months to get back in the gym. So imagine that you waited 3 months, you're really hungry and thirsty for that next goal, and then you go to the gym, you start squatting your max or trying to squat your max, bench your max, and deadlift your max. I mean, your body's gonna be like, it's like, hey, buddy, you haven't put any oil on me this whole time. Like, I'm gonna have to just shut down on you, and you're gonna have the check engine light going on. So.
Yeah, dude, it felt so smooth. Like, believe me, I wanted to do more. I wanted to put I want to stack plates on there, and I just wanted to go ham. But like, I stuck to the plan. Like, I was like, all right, this is what I've wrote out. This is like the rationale that I have for doing this. This is going to set me up for like the accumulation phase. Like, I want to be smart about this. So I'll just stick to the plan. I'm just gonna stick to the plan. Like it's so important. Like if our listeners listen to like Renaissance Periodization, if they follow RP, so like Dr. Mike, Jared Feather, Charlie Jung, they like always talk about that. Like whenever they talk about like adherence, they're just like, just stick to the plan, stick to the plan, just stick to the plan, just stick to the plan. And like there's probably a good reason to like jump off plan. Like the last cycle I ran, so at the start of this year up until like COVID hit, I was squatting I think 3 times a week as well as benching 3 times a week, and it was just like it wasn't working, man. I was killing myself. I was like always so ridiculously sore. So I was like, I need to kick the volume down for squats like to 2 times a week, and then I'll keep bench. Like bench is fine, and then I think deadlifts was still at like once a week because I just like I still haven't found an effective way to split up volume for deadlifts and do it more than once a week. I can do it for like a week or two, but then like it kicks my ass, and I'm just like,
Yeah, I don't like doing it. I don't
so
like doing it twice a week.
Yeah. Yeah. So we could probably, I think we did a good job with squats. We'd probably move on to leg presses.
Yeah.
The big myth with leg presses are that if you lock your knees out at like the full concentric, like while you're in the concentric, then your knees will hyperextend. So there's very few people that could like ever actually happen to. It's a condition called hyperlaxity, I think. So there's a I don't know like what like the medical reason is for it, but the knee joint will actually like it will extend like past. So like this is the knee. It works like a hinge usually. So like this is the knee like fully flexed or fully extended rather. This would be the knee fully flexed because flex is closing the joint angle. So this is the knee fully extended. For some people that experience hyperlaxity, their knee will actually like essentially go behind them. And for our viewer, our like podcast listeners, so that's like hyperextension of the knee. So there's like a popular video that was on YouTube like years back, like I think over a decade at this point, and it was of this woman that most likely had like hyperlaxity, and she was squatting. I think like the worst part is she had her trainer right there, but it could have just been like her partner or gym partner, just some random like rando dude. But they were like, there's somebody sitting right there, and they finished a rep, and they might have been like at the point of like concentric muscle failure, and their knees just like buckle, and they just like hyperextend like crazy, and like she probably tore like quite a bit. It's pretty bad. Like it makes people sick. But like people think like that's gonna happen to them. Like that is so extremely rare. So if you do have hyper mobile knees, meaning that they have a tendency to extend, hyperextend, I would say if you want to try leg presses, just make sure you always have a spot and make sure they're attentive. It's okay to go to lockout because there's a lever or a mechanism on most leg presses that allow you to rack the weight at that point. And yeah, just make sure like it's okay to express a concern to your like gym partner. Say like, hey, like I have really mobile knees, as you know. Just keep an eye on me and make sure that I don't like hyperextend my knees type situation. You can even if they don't know what that is, like if you just start working out with them for the first time and whatnot, you can even demonstrate like to the degree that you're comfortable, like a slight like hyperextension so they can see like, oh snap, like that is like some serious stuff. Because like at that point when you get to that, your levers are like very poorly like out leveraged. So you would never want to get to the point where the lady was in the video. So that would just be like how I explain that. But it's also important to understand like what's going on in that picture. And I'm like no expert on this, but leg presses are meant to strengthen both like the quadricep muscles, which help to extend the knee joint. So they should aid in stability of the knee joint, meaning making the knee more stable as opposed to less stable. So a hyperextensive, a knee that has tendencies toward hyperextension should also follow that they may, not like 100%, but they may lack stability in their knee joint. So leg pressing actually might help with that, help reduce that effect. I thought I had a second point onto that. I think I was going to say something to the effect of like it's meant for hip extension too. It's good for hip extension because you will get some flexion of the hip. So when the hip flexes, it also has to extend. So by like equivalency, that will also help to stabilize the knee joint, since the hips are a main factor in ensuring a stable position at the stack joint, which would be the knee joint. I think that was my my second point. So in my attempt to dispel this myth, one, express your concerns to your training partner if you do have knees that have a tendency to hyperextend. Two, I think leg presses would actually be like a really effective tool for you building up your quadricep muscles if you wanted to give them a try. And it's totally okay to give them a try, because I don't think it imposes an increase. Don't let your back do this like crazy like rounding. It's probably not super good. It's not like, doesn't mean like you're gonna get the snap city. There's plenty of videos out there of people doing leg presses with like really solid form. If you want to see the Gainz podcast demonstrate it, let us know. DM us, and we will absolutely create a video where we can show that. I think that would actually be like a really good idea. So doing leg presses effectively, like with good form, I think can help aid in knee stability as well as hip stability, and hip stability can aid in knee stability based off of like the stacking of the joints.
Just stack them up. Just stack them up like that hamburger.
Yeah.
Just stack them up, stack your body, make sure you're healthy, and get after it.
Yeah. Do you have any myths you wanted to tackle?
No, I mean, yeah, we're out of time today, so I wanted to make sure you were able to finish that with the leg press. No, but that's great. I'm glad you mentioned the leg press, because a lot of people either misuse it, they YOLO it, or they don't go by it at all. So that's great, and I'm glad that we kind of went over this, because this is something that I like to talk about too, and Roman likes it, because something that we don't really talk to too much. We kind of stick to like the plan. We try to build some things up. So if you guys want us to go over anything else, or if you're seeing something in the gym that you want us to talk about, like let us know, because throughout these phases that we're trying to do in a span of time, we'll go ahead and maybe do like a onesie twosies with something like this, because we only kind of went over like 3. So with the 30 minutes, so let us know. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, please. DM us if you want to just keep it private, and then we can just we can announce it and then kind of talk through it, Roman and I, and we will see you on that next one. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, Roman, I don't know if you want to close them out with some words, but
yeah, sure. So if we like follow along the Gainz train of leg press, full range of motion is a big thing. You see like so much like quarter range of motion, like even worse, and people using their hands to like extend the knees. Like, no, the knees, like your quads, like your glutes, like to like a certain portion, like your low back, because like you might have like a slight degree of like flexion in the back. Like it should be probably slight, like a high degree of flexion of the low back is like not the intended like movement of the leg press, but like a little bit of flexion is probably like warranted, just based off of like the biomechanics of like the low back, like inserting into like the pelvis, the sacrum, inserting into like the hip musculature. So like full range of motion. Like I think most people are able to do just like the plate itself, like just like the plate, no external load other than that. And like just focus on that. Just focus on like trying to get like as deep into like the leg press as possible, because that has the best carryover for general preparedness in life. Meaning like how you walk, how you like jump, run, how you like interact with other like obstacles in life. Man, I'm thinking more and more. We have to create a video. Like we need to like go over this for people. But other than that, I know Antoine's got to go, so we appreciate you as always, folks. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great week.
Bye-bye. Peace.